chilling tales for dark nights.
Knuckle Supper, written by Drew Stepek, performed by Jason Hill. Chapter 5, Colleagues. Bate and I turned the corner to the front of the Knuckler's garage. I spun a sign on the corner wall that had once said something about smog certification before the garage went up in flames. Home, I said to myself. Bate pulled something out of the front pocket of her sock and started fiddling with a touchscreen. Wait, I didn't give you enough money for an iPod, I said as soon as I realized what she was playing with. Where did you get this? Bate rolled her eyes up to me and crinkled her lip, playing tough. Stole it? I grabbed Bate's wrist, yanked the earbud out of her ear, and looked her sternly in the eyes. This isn't going to be easy at all, you know. Whatever, she spat back, grabbing the earbud cord from my hand and plugging it back into her head. We were late to the meeting. Much to my dismay, Bates spent too much time picking out a hardcore introduction outfit that consisted of a black corset, spiked heels, a pair of skull-printed tights, a pleather miniskirt, and a scarf knee-high sock ensemble that matched the aforementioned tights. It was ridiculous. So, we were late to the meeting that I called. As we walked in, everyone grew silent as if my entrance comically scratched a record. A wrench dropped somewhere in the middle of the gang. Not only was every knuckler already there, but our tardiness gave Dez the opportunity to tell everyone in the gang about RJ and his dumb human prostitute. The smell of musty towels, fried wood, and Bondo putty rose up from the floor and through my nose inside the dilapidated building where the knucklers met. It used to be Al's body shop till it burned down. The Friars Club it wasn't. See, told you. Des pointed at Bate. She slid behind my arm. No outfit could have made her look hardcore in the eyes of those asshole derelicts. What's up his ass? She said, tugging on the back of my belt. I ground my teeth. Shut up, Bate. I warned you about the hearing. She shot me a thumbs up. Everyone, I asked you here to talk about something that could put us all in a shitload of danger, I said. Krang! A socket wrench beat against the blackened brick of the building, causing a snowstorm of torched building innards to fill the air. Des lowered the wrench, hacked up and spit a huge phlegm ball onto the floor. Aren't any of you going to say anything about him bringing a human to this meeting? His eyes scanned the room for support. Knucklers gathered in a circle, scratched at their necks and flinched around trying to avoid making eye contact with him. It was nice to see Dez's ill-planned coup d'etat going nowhere. The kid didn't have an ounce of leadership in him. I knew that nothing made him happier than the dream to overthrow my rule and then rape and suck down all of Bates' blood. Yeah, a badass bunch of vampires that team up on a 12-year-old junkie girl. Feeling good that the mutiny lasted less than a minute, I decided to push him back into the corner where he belonged. I looked at my wrist to the watch I didn't have. Oh, are you here for the Girl Scout meeting? Little girl? I cracked with a sarcastic jeer. That was at 6. The garage instantly erupted. Fuck you, RJ. Des shot back. I called this meeting for you, jerk. I'm here to tell everyone about your stupid plan, and then, if we unanimously agree, we'll do it. They all looked over to Des. This has nothing to do with the little girl, Des. This is about you, and I'm giving you the chance. So, speak. He cleared his throat. It was the first time that he ever had the chance to really propose anything important to the knucklers. The other night, RJ and I took down some Perry snitch who was getting drugs from the cops. Turns out they were moving about 40 pounds of H. I want to put it back on the streets and sell it. Does Cobra know about it? Someone asked. We're not sure, Des continued. We were supposed to intercept a bunch of coke. I figure we just tell the snakes that there were no drugs there. Maybe you say that the snitch was double-crossed by the cops or something. The gang whispered amongst themselves. I called across the garage. Pico, beer. Pico dragged his leg over to the cooler. He had been out already that night hunting. His stalking gimmick was brilliant. He'd snap his leg backward and act like he was a vagrant. He constantly spent his time reading medical journals, so he knew exactly where to break himself so that it wouldn't cause any lasting damage. I guess you could say the old man was our doctor. At night, he'd collect change and then devour what he considered the best suckies, drag them down an alley and have at them. He looked older and grumpier than the rest of us. His Shar-Pei wrinkled face was filled with gray whiskers. He stood crippled in his mid-fives, and his body was made more awkward by his enormous forearms. The old bastard looked like Popeye's dad after a violent tour in Vietnam. Pico handed me a beer that he bottled himself. "So, are you going to introduce us, RJ?" He bit at his cracked lips and shot me a wink. I snapped the beer from his hand. "Pico, you dirtbag, she's 12. 12-year-old whore junkie," Des interrupted, drifting away from the conversation about the heroin. "What the fuck is your problem, Des?" Big Tahoe walked over and put his elbow on Dez's head to rest. "He's jealous because he thought he was your only bitch," the mammoth balked. Des shook him off and whipped a machete out that was tucked into the back of his belt. Always with the weapons. "Whose bitch do you want to be, ho? This is just another one of our fearless leader's shit ideas, just like the habit. We all know how that turned out." "Des," I said, "calm down and tell everyone the rest of your plan. Then, we'll decide." He looked at Bait and then started again. "We sell the heroin in Culver City. My boys will move little bits of the product every night." "Sounds fucking dumb," another knuckler yelled from the corner of the garage. "It's not dumb," Des insisted. "It's called free money. This heroin is free." Most of the knucklers cleared out, except for those of us who made the decision. It turns out that many of the members were more concerned about Bait being around than Des's heroin plan. "You know that you have to talk to King Cobra, RJ," Tahoe reminded me as he deadlifted the front of an abandoned Nova. I looked over at Bait, who was being babysat by Pico. "Can we just not tell them about her?" She seemed entertained. He was snapping his limbs back and forth and flailing around like a human puppet. It was pretty gross. "Dude, are you nuts?" Des took a shot of whiskey and blood. "No matter what, this whole thing you have cooking up is a horrible idea, and if you don't tell them, they're going to find out. That's just what we need. The Battlesnake's calling for an all-out turf war against us. I hate to tell you this, RJ. Our land claim gets smaller and smaller every day." Des brushed his hair out of his face with his machete. "Turf war? Seriously. Turf war? What are you talking about, Des? If there's going to be an issue between us and the snakes, it's going to be because we decided to sell their heroin under their noses." Tahoe broke in. "As stupid as it sounds, you should tell Cobra about the girl. Might make him forget about the drugs." "Look, RJ," Des said, "I don't think I need to remind you how pissed off Cobra was when things went wrong with the habit. Shit, I wanted to fuck her too. It didn't go well. She exposed us all to the cloth." "Cloth," I scoffed. "Do you really still believe that fairy tale? Do you really believe that there is a group of renegade Catholic priests whose only mission is to create a vampire holocaust? Are you kidding me? No one has ever seen these guys. It's bullshit created by the snakes to scare you. Stupid." "I don't know. A lot of gang members from every set have gone missing," Tahoe declared, dropping the Nova to the garage floor. "Copperhead told me." "Copperhead? Great. Your little alliance with these assholes just confirms everything I've said. The habit was never working for some mercenary god group bent on vampire genocide. She was just some washed-up loser who wanted to see what it was like to kill people, and it just happens to turn out that she was a junkie. I got a free house out of the deal. You guys really need to start thinking about what you're saying. We aren't in some big good versus evil battle with anyone. You know what our battle is, Des? We battle to get high. So, some gang of Rastas thinks they're running something that's bigger than it is. It isn't. I blew smoke in his face. The cloth? Are you kidding me? Hey RJ, check this out, Bait yelled across the garage. The few knucklers left had gathered to watch her. I couldn't tell if they were sizing her up because they wanted to drain her or if they were sincerely entertained by her childish antics. She cracked one of Pigo's legs out. Broken, she said. She cracked it back in. Fixed. I looked back at Des and Tahoe, who seemed completely miffed by her display, and shrugged my shoulders. RJ, Des said, turning away from the romper room. You've completely lost your mind. Not us. Listen to me. I know you took my ass in when I was living in the streets, trying to shoot heroin, sucking rat blood. Well, you're just that lucky, aren't you, Des? I took you in because you were pathetic. I took you under my wing because you seemed like a good enough kid. Are you jealous that I'm doing the same thing for her? You are such the fucking bastard kid here, and you know it. You should be glad that we accepted you then, and that we accept you now. Do you think your buddy Copperhead would think highly of you if he got a look at you on the skids, picking through people's feces, hoping to find some blood? I grabbed him by his shirt. Don't be a little bitch. Call your friend and set up some FaceTime between me and Cobra, if that makes you happy. Just remember, little man, you aren't all that different from her. Des flipped his hair over his head. What about the drugs? I say we do it, Tahoe answered. I pushed Des back into his chair. His eyes glossed over with stone as he nodded that he'd get it done. I stared at him. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, since I knew his pussy emo ass actually had feelings. But he had to know that pissing on my leadership and trying to make a joke out of me wasn't his right. This is hilarious, Tahoe chuckled. I patted Des on the shoulder, trying to mend the rift growing between us, then turned back to Tahoe. What's hilarious? He pointed back to the bait show. Hey RJ! She was spazzing out like she had just found the greatest toy in the world. Look at it. Broken. Fixed. Broken. Fixed. The knucklers continued to observe her like she was a new pet. That's when I agreed to tell Cobra that Bait was staying with me, and we all agreed that we should sell the heroin. The next day, back at the RJ Estates, Des and I divided out small bags of junk to his followers. One by one, they lined up, all looking like Des, desperate, hair in their eyes, mopey with their backpacks open. I locked Bait in my room with her new iPod, stolen computer, and her pimp's Discover card. Oh yes, Big Daddy Badass had a Discover card. As Des distributed the little Ziploc bags of Mexican mud-like rations, I looked through a Thomas guide that I had spent the previous night dividing into sections, clearly defining the lines of rival gangs. I had all the pages of Culver City earmarked, and I flipped back and forth trying to figure out a somewhat centralized yet widely distributed area that only fringed on the Sangre territory. Personally, I didn't care whether or not Des's followers got torched. Unfortunately, they had such a clearly distinct and similar look that all paths would surely lead back to the knucklers. Is there any way we can shave these kids' heads and give them, like, Slayer shirts or something? I asked. You know, get them out of those tight pants. Make them more... More what? Des asked. You know, I said. more Mexican. I grabbed a kid by his choker and dragged him in front of Des. Throw a black carcass shirt on this kid or something. I shoved him to the floor. Dez's lowly secretary whispered into his ear, hiding behind his bangs that almost touched his shoulders in the front. I snapped the kid over to me. "No whispering, dork," I said. "I need to know everything about this. There is more on the line here than you seem to understand." I started pointing around the room. Your well-being, I finished on Des. And even yours. The kid cleared his throat. I was just telling Des that it was a good idea to move into Culver City unrecognized, but, rather than shaving our heads, I thought maybe we can tuck our hair into caps? Are you done? I asked, turning back to Des. Come on, Des, this isn't about being fashionable and looking hip. Mexicali vamp teens that skate and listen to Slayer will destroy these, I pointed at his followers again, losers. For some reason, when they heard losers, their faces lifted from the profoundly depressed to the slightly sad. Even though their eyes showed hope, they seemed destined to be forever on suicide watch. Besides, I didn't intend calling them losers as a compliment. We don't want them to look exactly like Sangre, Des rationalized. If any of them do get busted, we all get busted for trying to take over their area. He questioned his drones. There isn't going to be any fuck-ups with this, right? Surprisingly, Dez's reasoning was well-founded. After all, why draw any attention to ourselves? The hats will be good enough, I concluded. But try and blend in a bit more. One of the Desians raised his hand. What do you mean, blend? Jesus, poser, you know what I mean, I said. Wear baseball caps on the side or whatever. Don't wear eye makeup or bowlers. Just try not to look like you think you're in a gothic fairy tale. The Desian smirked to his friend on his right. The friend added, But that is the norm now. Damn. Was I really the old fart in the room? Before I slung myself on the kid, I looked to Des for reassurance that they were the norm. Des nodded his head yes. To my surprise, these shits were more dime a dozen than the jocks, skaters, and dorks I watched on network TV. You'd be surprised, sir, the boy said. The kids my age dress like vampires. And what does a vampire dress like? I asked. He pointed to the back of the line, the only somewhat unique individual in the bunch. He was the kid I'd heard them calling Piglet. He was fatter than the rest of them, and instead of the covered eyes look, he apparently opted for the disgusting, stringy black hair look. Topped off with a German Iron Cross brooch thing, his satin button-up shirt looked like it was going to pop because it was packed like a sausage casing with his chins and his neck. At the bottom of his look was a pair of not-so-tight black latex pants. He looked like the shorter and plumper bastard son of the L. Byron actor I pointed out to Des in the billboard for the Nightshade movies. That's real nice, guys, I said. If this kid is so lame, then why do you roll with him? I looked to Des. He shrugged his shoulders, setting off a chain reaction of more shrugging, puzzled looks, and raised eyebrows from his pupils. The secretary kid, who up until his next sentence I figured had leadership skills, finally blurted out, He knows where to... He cleared his throat. He knows where to get the coolest clothes. Are you kidding me? A voice said from the hall behind me. This is what you call a gang, RJ? All the Desians panted like starving wolves as I spun around. I thought for a second before speaking because I was pretty ashamed by the clothing statement as well. After a long pause, "Get back in the room, bait," finally came out. Told you, Des said to his clan. I pivoted back to him and got in his grill. Told them what, Des? I told them you let this little whore run the house. He mimicked Bates' voice. Here's your shot of blood, RJ. Here's your dog food, RJ. Leroy and Skillet came out of my room into the hall and joined Bate as her guardians. Des grabbed his nuts. Here's your balls, RJ. Inconspicuously, the drones elbowed each other. Why are you nerds laughing? You're the ones talking about what's cool to wear. You're acting a lot more like a bunch of little girls than me. Bate flung her stare back to Des. I hate to tell you, but that is way lamer than me bringing back dudes for you guys to eat and get high on. Des looked at his watch. How long has it been now, whore girl? You haven't brought us shit yet except for a pain in my ass. Would all of you shut up? I yelled. When did this house become a junior fucking high school? Silence filled our living room. Bate grabbed onto her stomach as a wet burp came up in her mouth. She immediately made a beeline to the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. I heard her turn on the bathwater, but it didn't cover up the thundering sound of her retching. From what I made out, she managed to hit all 4 walls, including the shower curtain, the floor, and the sink. In seconds, some semi-chunky yellow fluid ran out from under the door. Thankfully, Leroy and Skillet were standing guard so they could lick it up as it exited the bathroom. What was all that about? I asked Bate. Her hair was a Medusa mess on top of her head. I thought about gently patting the mess out, but I didn't do anything. I didn't want to take the chance of getting her kid mange on my hands. Her swollen eyes looked up at me and she tried to speak through her bloated cheeks and glands. It's the smell of this place. I've told you several times that our lifestyle is gross. It's not going to smell like a room at the Ritz. I know, I just think that when Des and his friends teamed up on me, well, it just reminded me of when I went to school. I don't understand. She sipped her coffee. It added to the hideous nature of her breath, and I was trying to avoid direct contact with by turning my nose sideways. Well, before I ran away, I had just started junior high. My mind began to wander. I never went to school. I never cared about it, and it seemed so far from my world and my reality. However, I said, go on. In my elementary school, I was popular and had all sorts of friends and stuff. Yeah? I continued to listen, but my interest faded as quickly as I heard the word popular. The word and its connotations were all foreign. Her entire story became completely inconsequential to me. I wasn't very popular when I was 12. All I remembered was being in an alley dumpster, only living to score heroin and find rats. I'm sure my smell alone was taken into consideration when my eligibility for popularity came into question. Anyway, over the summer before I went to this new junior high school, I told my best friend Brianna about what Thomas was doing to me and my sister. Thomas the train? Thomas the stepdad? I salvaged the conversation. Oh, yeah, and your sister is Pinball, right? Hey, you remembered. She smirked inside her inflated shell. She looked like a marshmallow dropped in a cat box that ended up sticking to all the discarded hair, turds, and litter inside. Huh, how could I forget a name like Pinball? I said. I love Pinball. Her smile dropped and she went cold. What is it now, Bate? She picked a barf biscuit out of her front teeth using the plastic lid of her coffee as a toothpick. She proceeded to wipe the discharge on the arm of the couch. Nothing. If you don't want to hear the story, then I don't care. It's lame anyways. I stood up, pretending to get something from across the room while she closed her eyes. Unnoticed, I grabbed a tissue and gathered up the asteroid that came out of her mouth. I shot a quick basket across the room. Swish. Come on, Bate, I said. I fell back on the couch next to her. I like the game of pinball. I'm sure if I got the chance to meet your sister, I'd find her to be a very nice young lady as well. She chippered up a little bit. I could tell she was nervous about having the conversation with me as she gnawed at the styrofoam cup that she was drinking from. Okay, she agreed, spinning a half-moon-shaped piece of cup onto my coffee table. I ignored it. So, I told this girl, Brianna, who's telling the story here. She moaned and jumped to her feet, acting like she was going to stomp out and go back to her bathroom. Fuck, I'm trying to tell you something important. I caught her wrist. I'm sorry, Bate. Sit back down. I want to hear the rest of the story. Where was I? She sat down and started again. Oh yeah, so I told this girl, Brianna, what Thomas, your stepfather. Shut the fuck up. Yes, my stepdad. I told her that my stepdad was having sex with me because she told me that she broke her hymen over the summer while she was riding her horse. I closed my mouth and made an uncomfortably surprised expression. I couldn't help but think about how absolutely inappropriate this conversation was. Rather than cut her off again, I simply sewed my lips shut, bulged my eyes, and started nodding my head. Brianna and I pinky swore these were our secrets and stuff. When she asked me if I liked how it felt, I might have said that I did because I think I was trying to show off about how mature I was compared to her or something. That night was a week before school started and my family went to Disneyland for vacation. I hummed. Well, I got back the night before school started and I was like all tan and stuff from vacation in California, she continued. The next day, I got to my first day of junior high school and everyone was ignoring me. Even Brianna? She nodded with a pout on her lips. The nerve, I managed to get out as I coaxed the discussion along. Right? That day at lunch, no one sat by me. I sat alone at a table near the back and this boy I liked came over to me and yelled, "Hey everyone, Bailey fucks her dad and she likes it. Slut." Then, everyone in the lunchroom led by Brianna started chanting it. Bailey fucked her dad. Bailey fucked her dad. She began clapping her hands as she remembered the chant. Bailey fucked her dad. My face morphed from a sarcastic, uninterested jerk to the look of a concerned parent, and not her shit parents. My posture straightened. Shh, I said, comforting her. Hey, what did you do next? Did you run away to California right then? No. This is where the story gets good. I didn't tell her that there was nothing inherently good about it. Actually, it probably ranked in the top 3 of the saddest stories I'd ever heard. So, I had gym class right after lunch and I didn't go to the class at all. Instead, I sat in the shower and cried. But I waited. I waited the entire period for them to get back from class. The second Brianna got to her locker, I jumped her and took out a sock with my gym lock inside of it. Then, I beat her halfway to death. She jumped up from the couch like she was a cheerleader, swung her arms around and kicked her bony legs in the air. "Go Bait!" she cheered. B-A-I-T. What's that spell? Go Bait! Leroy and Skillet howled and jumped up and down with her, causing Bait to stumble over Leroy and hit her chin on the coffee table. I tried to break her fall, but she nailed it anyway. Not leaving anyone shortchanged, she hugged the dogs and they both licked her bulging face. Then, she finally sat down next to me, giving me a hug. Isn't that part awesome? I guess. I tried to shuffle as close to the armrest as I could get, but she intensified her vice-gripped squeeze. Go figure. I was terrified of a 12-year-old psychopath. Hey, RJ. Yes, I answered. Can I sleep on your floor tonight? Yeah. Can I bring my shower mat in your room? Yeah. Can you wash it for me? Yeah. Because you know my bathroom smells like barf. Really bad. Yeah. I know, Bait.
Good evening. This is Jason Hill, host of the Horror Hill podcast. You've been listening to a chapter from the award-winning novel Knuckle Supper by best-selling author Drew Stepek. Knuckle Supper, Ultimate Gutter Fix Edition, and its critically acclaimed sequel, Knuckle Balled, are available now from Bloodbound Books. Check out the links in the video description and sticky comments below to pick up a copy today and show your support for indie horror. Also, please consider making a donation to Children of the Night today and help end teen prostitution and human trafficking. Children of the Night is a privately funded non-profit organization established in 1979 with the specific purpose of providing intervention in the lives of children who are sexually exploited and vulnerable to, or involved in, prostitution and pornography. Visit childrenofthenight.org for more information today. From author Drew Stepek and all of us here at Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, thanks for listening and for your support.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.